So everybody recently has been very concerned about Big Mommy Tiamat coming out and Draco releasing, as they are going to be very strong servants and they are going to be coming out within the next couple of weeks over here on the NA side of things. But I wouldn't be doing my service as a Morgan enjoyer if I didn't talk about the anniversary character that will be coming out shortly after them, Ace the Savior, who also features in a lot of my favorite teams to run in the game. And I do feel like this does go off very well the video I just did a couple of days ago talking about Koyan Dark. I do want to say I have been a firm enjoyer of Koyan Dark's 3rd Ascension for quite a while. I have gone over that on stream numerous times. I've also been very vocal about how I really do not care about the 1st and 2nd Ascensions. It's just, I don't know, you give some lady some freaky beast traits and I'm like, that goes unbelievably hard. I'm going to use that character. And there's been quite the transformation on my opinion on that character, from them randomly appearing in my GSSR and me literally just calling them a freak and telling them to stay away from me, to now them being integral to a lot of different team setups that I run. And so I kind of just wanted to feature a team setup that I really enjoy because it's also very malleable. Ace the Savior pretty much is the glue that holds this entire team together, but it is something that depending on your box, you can adapt and make stronger depending on if you have things like Black Grail. Do you have your own Koyan Light or your own Oberon? I don't have those on JP. So in the first run, you're just going to see the team centered around Ace, Kukulkan, and Koyan Dark with no plug suit needed. I mean, I brought plug suit, but I didn't actually have to use it because the characters just work really well together. But another thing that I really do like about it is that you can kind of swap around your middle DPS and Kukulkan depending on what the situation demands. For instance, I do really like that this team has really good coverage against different types of enemies, because you have Kukulkan with the Earth Power mod, and then you have Ace the Savior with the Evil Power mod, and then they can also just do really good damage because Ace's 3rd skill is absolutely bonkers, giving everybody 50% battery and some massive NP damage. But Kukulkan also has the targetable 50% battery, which actually comes into clutch here, depending on who you want to be able to fire an additional NP. And she is also giving the attack buff, and let's also admit, is also really self-sufficient on her own, being able to do some really strong damage. This is another team setup that also features the fact that stars are really not all that hard to generate. I do love that Kukulkan sometimes gets slapped with the con of, oh, well, you do need 20 stars if you want to unlock all of her offensive buffs, but that is literally never something that comes up at all ever. If you need to have the 20 stars, they are going to be available to you one way or another. But again, it's just a really fun team that I like to run because, again, you can kind of bring it a little bit anywhere, and especially if you don't have stronger supports. Like, again, I don't have Koyan Light and I don't have Oberon on my JP account, so sometimes, you know, you'll see me bring like a friend Oberon if I need a little bit of extra damage. But it is really malleable. You can kind of bring whoever you want into this and kind of fit them into this team slot because you just have so much NP going around. I will say that originally when I made this team composition, when I was using it, we would fire Ace's 1st skill on turn 1, but now I have enough append coins that I can actually do her monoloading, the passive skill that gives you 20% starting NP gauge, so I no longer have to do that. Even though I'm still ideally getting 50% on that 1st turn, even though I don't need it because I'm getting Koyan Dark's Buster buff, and then I'm also plug suiting an Oberon for a little bit of extra NP damage on that wave 1, because let's face it, wave 1s are not always going to be guys that only have like 20,000 HP. Sometimes they might have, gasp, 100,000 HP, or I guess if you're on the NA version right now, you might have like 600,000 HP, which some would call a little bit excessive, but I say is a worthy challenge. And I say make the first wave 1,000,000 HP enemies. I'm always willing to rise to the challenge. But in all seriousness, I think the other thing that I really like about running this team comp is it shows how you as a player can kind of overcome not having the supports in the game. We always focus on the fact that the supports are what make FGO, and that's not wrong. You know, having somebody like Castoria, Oberon, or Koyan Light, and even Ruler Scotty does make your life a lot easier because it opens up a lot of different avenues for you to be able to clear a lot of the content, and it functionally lets you kind of turn your brain off a little bit. Sure, we could say that, well, with Castoria, you could do a little bit of multi-core farming. That is, say, bringing 2 different AoE servants to do the farming, or an AoE and a single target servant, but it's not like it's all that hard to do. I mean, Castoria does all the hard work for you by having a battery on her 1st skill and then a targetable battery on her 2nd skill. It just really comes down to, can you do 1st grade level math, which hopefully if you are playing this game, you are able to do 1st grade level math. But team comps like this do kind of harken back to an older style of playing through the game, where if you were playing during, say, like year 1 and 2, especially when kind of Merlin came out, a lot of the farming in the game came down to, do you just slap on big batteries on the people, and then you have one guy clear wave 1, second guy clear wave 2, third guy clear wave 3. I mean, I've talked about how my team comp up until, you know, Scotty released was Arash Wave 1, Lancelot Wave 2, bombs all these stars, and then Gilgamesh would do Wave 3 because he functionally had power mod against all the servants in the game, and then even if he didn't take out the enemy, either Gil's crits or Lancelot's crits on the follow-up with the NP would be enough to pretty much 3-turn anything in the game. It only really got bad whenever I got to the 3rd node, and then I had a handful of Merlin crit cards that didn't really do a whole lot of damage, but I mean, that happened every like 1 in 1,000 runs, so it really wasn't all that real. So it does kind of give me a little bit of nostalgia tying back to that, but it has more freedom in that you can decide who you want to fire the NPs with. If you want to do 3 NPs back to back to back with, say, Ace the Savior, you can most certainly do that. If she's going to be the most optimal for doing damage, you know, you're fighting assassins, and who knows, good jolly wee willikers, dude, they might all be evil attribute people. So you know what, maybe she's just absolutely cooking. Or maybe you just need Ace to fire that 1 NP so you can get her 3rd skill back up, and then let Kukulkan, or if you don't have Kukulkan, you know, your Koyan Dark mop up the other 2 nodes of the Earth attribute enemies. And then you even find yourselves in scenarios where in the last gameplay, you have all 3 NPs ready to go. You know, you have Ace, you have Kukulkan, and you have Oberon over there. So even if you're going into, like, say, a 90++ node, sure, one of your servants might not be able to take out the enemy NP or take out their HP with their own singular NP, but when you have 3 of them lined up, the likelihood of that goes up astronomically, because not only are you, well, doing a lot more damage because you have more than 1 NP lined up, and your NP generally is going to do more damage than your crits when you're relying on those for these clears. Insert the person being like, my Super Orion does big crit damage, and I love using him for 9-turn farming on 90++ nodes. But you're also overcharging whoever you put in the back. So say you put Ace the Savior in front of somebody like, say, Kukulkan in my specific setup. Not only is that going to be overcharging Kukulkan's power mod, but it's also going to be putting a defense down on the enemy from Ace the Savior's own NP. It just is a lot of really good servants that have these neat little synergies with one another that I really like. Anytime I can build a team comp where everybody have these neat little intricacies that kind of just bump each other up and help each other out in these little ways, I just enjoy seeing that stuff. I just think it's really neat. And I mean, even in the last setup, you know, sure, it's like, well, technically, there's only a handful of Black Grail compliant Buster AoE servants, but that's for, you know, the double Koyanskaya Oberon method, where it's like, oh, the only people we can really use with this is going to be like Tiamat and Melusine, and I think Saber Alter's another one that you can use. But with this, I'm able to get Black Grail on my Kukulkan, because usually for those other servants, if you say want like a Morgan or a Cuckoo, or whatever have you Buster AoE servant use Black Grail, usually they're not going to be able to NP 3 different times. But one, that can be made a lot easier if you have a big floppy-hatted caster to go ahead and just blow up the first wave of enemies. But 2, when you just have this much NP flowing around, it is really hard to not get your people to fire their NPs. I mean, if you think about it, just from free NP that you can give to people, you have a 50% battery for the entire party off of just Ace alone. You have 30% off of Koyan Dark. You have a targetable 50% from Kukulkan. You have 20% to everybody from Oberon. And then you have a targetable 50%, not disincluding the fact that Ace the Savior also has her own 50% battery. It's just a really fun team to use, and I just thought I'd go ahead and show it off in this video, because I've been using it for like the past 6 months or so, something along those lines, when I was like, man, how am I going to use my Ace the Savior after getting shafted on the Koyan Light banner for the 500th time in a row? And then I was like, well, you know what? I have the cooler Koyanskaya over here with her whole beast form going on. Let me just start putting her to work, and then it just worked out really well. I will say specifically, while you can alter this, and you know, you could swap people around, obviously. You could, you know, do your team comp without, say, Ace the Savior. You could try to do it without Koyan Dark, but the fact that Koyan Dark has an overcharge of 2 stages is absolutely huge for somebody like Ace the Savior, because it means that you can immediately get her 3rd skill up on the 2nd wave, as opposed to getting it back on the 3rd wave. Because if you fire it normally, like there are some events where I've had to run it without, you know, obviously using Demonic Bodhisattva to get the overcharge levels, and it's a little bit annoying. Like the last event, the Valentine's one, I could have really used her 3rd skill on the 2nd wave, but because, you know, obviously I'm trying to run a max CE setup, I'm not going to be running Demonic Bodhisattva. I could only get the 50% battery and, more notably, the big NP damage off on the 3rd wave, which was fine for taking that guy out, but it made the giant springing tree guy really annoying to try to take out. We still were able to get it done, but I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say that it was really annoying to try to do. So I hope this helps out some newer players that might be a little bit distraught. They're like, oh, I didn't get Castoria, or I started just right before any of the real big supports had their banners go away, so I wasn't able to get them. There are still a lot of other ways to get through a lot of these nodes in FGO. And while, you know, we could also argue about, like, ZTL, is this team even optimal? Is this, like, even the 5th best team in the game? For me, I don't really care because it clears all the content for me. And then if I need to sub in a different power mod, like I mentioned Morgan earlier, if I need man attribute power mod, I can always sub out Kukulkan for Morgan, and then I can just have my damage that way. It's perfectly fine to me, because at the end of the day, as long as you're clearing the content in a timely and efficient manner, I don't really care how you're doing it. If you're doing it in 9 turns with your Super Orion crits, I'm gonna have to tell you that that's not optimal, and you should probably figure out a better way to better make use of your AP, because at that point, this is just me giving you advice. You're wasting a lot of time out there. I'm trying to help you out. But as long as the team comp can get through things in a clean and efficient manner, then I don't really care where it ranks. It could be the best team comp in the game, it could be the worst one, but I'm still getting through the content, and it's malleable, it's adaptive, and I just really enjoy using it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And one other thing that I would really be interested to know is that because of this team comp specifically, it has really changed my view on a character like Koyan Dark, where I went from absolutely molding that I got them in a GSSR and was just absolutely loathing the fact that I pulled this character over somebody that I actually wanted, to now being like, you know what, I really like their 3rd Ascension, it goes hard, and you know what, this character helps me out a lot, and this team comp I enjoy using. You know what, Koyan Dank, you're alright. I want to know if anybody else has a character like that, where maybe you pulled like a Cleopatra, maybe you pulled a Gilgamesh, and you're like, I don't like Gilgamesh, and then he started clapping cheeks for you, and you're like, you know what, Gilgamesh, you're alright. Maybe it's Ivan, maybe it's Iskandar, maybe it's a really popular servant, maybe you didn't want somebody like Jalter or Morgan, and you were like, I don't want these bum women, I wanted dudes, I wanted Coup Caster, and I didn't get any copies of him. And then you started using them and your opinion on them changed. I'd be really curious to see what some stories are from the community in the comment section down below. But again, always, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, as I do upload these videos every single day. If you would like to influence the videos that come out on Fridays, we have a Patreon link down in the description down below, where you should gain access to the Patreon exclusive chat in the Discord, where I will probably ping you at random hours in the night saying, what is the Friday video going to be? And you will be able to roll out of your bed, type in clickety-clack on your computer or on your phone and say, you know what, ZTL, I think you should do the Bartholomew video. And then I will punch you through the screen for recommending that. But anyways, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice one, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace, late guys.